What's going on, everybody? Andrew Thompson here of the Andrew Thompson Interviews YouTube channel. I am back with a new interview with a guest that you have seen all over the place. He has tallied up a decade plus in the wrestling business. You've seen him on AEW, you've seen him in New Japan, you've seen him on WWE at times. He's worked in WWN. You've seen him in New Japan once. Ladies and gentlemen, this is John Skyler. John, what's going on, man? How you feeling?
I'm doing well, Andrew. How are you today?
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you taking the time to do this. I'm doing well. Appreciate you asking. To just start off the bat, man, you recently returned to the ring several months ago and had a rough injury to your ACL, MCL, and your PCL in your right knee. Just tell me, like, what was it like to get back in the ring, and what does it currently feel like, as you've progressed throughout the months, and just how everything has kind of, made a turn for the better over the past couple of months.
Well, first of all, I feel great right now. In terms of the actual my knee and any kind of pain, I almost feel like it's non-existent. I almost don't even think about it anymore, which is probably good because the first couple of matches that I had back, it's all I thought about, and I was so cautious to not re-injure anything. But yeah, last June, so June of 2020, probably 2020 will go down as the most, but I guess the worst year in the history of the world for everybody. But I was in a match with Dark Order and ended up tearing my ACL, my MCL, and my PCL, and had to have surgery last June, 2 days before my mom's birthday, actually. So that was a fun way to celebrate. And I was out. I was projected to be out anywhere from 8 months to a year, and I got back in 7. So it was definitely a mental struggle, especially with everything else that was going on in the world. The world had kind of come to a pause, and everything had kind of shut down. Weren't a lot of independence going on. So AEW was gracious enough to continue to bring me back and pay me while I was injured. They paid me very well every week. There was a television taping, and I got to work with their team of doctors, Doc Sampson, Bryce, Brad, all the great guys that they have there at their medical team, and they helped me rehab as well in Jacksonville. So they were great, and I had my first match back in January when I was medically cleared against the Gun Club, and it's kind of been off to the races since.
Yeah, man. You mentioned the mental struggles that one could possibly go through recovering from an injury like that, a very devastating injury. Just talk to me about how you were able to, keep your head high throughout those times. I'm pretty sure there were moments, just in life in general, when you, regarding to you, when you go through an injury like that. I'm pretty sure there were times like when you can't get down, but just tell me how do you, kind of kept your pace and just kept moving forward throughout those struggles.
Yeah, well, for me, it was especially difficult because it was my first injury that I've had in my 13-year career.
Mm.
Yeah, I've wrestled hurt. I've had little minor, dings here and there in terms of, getting hurt, but this is my first actual injury and serious injury. So it was a tough pill to swallow, especially at first hearing that you're not going to be able to do anything for upwards to 8 months. Um, so it does kind of wear on you a little bit, but I really tried to find new hobbies and kind of reignite some of the flame and some of the old hobbies that I used to have. So I spent a lot of time on the lake, spent a lot of time fishing, stuff like that to kind of occupy my time outside of wrestling. But also the big one for me was the day I got cleared to get back in the gym and do a little bit of like just minor upper body training and stuff like that. I mean, pretty much as soon as I found out I was able to do that and was cleared to, I went straight there and started working out. And so that was a big out for me, especially because, I knew I had to be back and, getting in shape again for my return. So I had to maintain what I had.
Right. And one thing that I really did want to talk to you about, you mentioned at the top that you tallied up over a decade plus in the wrestling business. Like I asked this question a couple of times in interviews that I've done over the past couple of months. Like, have you seen like sort of a shift in the wrestling business as far as like you've seen wrestlers start to treat themselves more like a business opposed to just being strictly professional wrestlers? Like they're starting to venture out more and do more things outside of the sport that can help benefit them in the long run. Do you think that we've kind of started to see that shift in wrestling, like as far as wrestlers just, trying to expand their brand and themselves outside of just the confines of what they do in the ring?
Yeah, I think there's been multiple shifts in the wrestling business since I've been a part of it. And that's a big one is guys looking at themselves like a brand.
Mm.
Now you see so many guys with, podcast, with Twitch, with outside endeavors. A lot of guys get into music now, politics. There's just a wide variety of things that, yeah, there has been a shift, and guys, treat themselves more like a product than just a professional wrestler. And it's almost like anytime we're seen on camera or anywhere on social media or any kind of personal appearance, it's a commercial for yourself. And so, I think a lot of guys kind of take that serious, and even more so than when I first started. It just seemed like everybody was kind of dead set in like the old school way of just being a wrestler that went and wrestled on shows and drove to the next town. I don't think guys were really looking at the long picture or the big picture back then. I think everybody was a little more short-sighted of just how you're going to get from one booking to another. And so, yeah, there has been quite the shift. And I think the current crop and the current generation of wrestlers, both male and female, are a lot smarter in that regard too.
Mm-hmm. Now, taking it way back, way back to around 2014 or so, I wanted to talk to you about how you got started in WWN. That's like that was attached to Evolve back in the day. I know you did some like them full Impact shows, that full Impact Pro shows that were like connected to Evolve in a way. It was like a joint show type thing. Like, just tell me how you kind of got started in WWN, and like, is it kind of crazy like to see like where some of the people who work with you on those shows are now? Like Cameron Grimes is in WWE, Rich Swann is the Impact World Champion. You got Lindsay Dorado, he's in WWE now. Like, is it kind of crazy like to think back and like see how far everyone has come, including yourself?
It is. I wouldn't say it's crazy. I would say it's probably more surreal, because you knew everybody's talent even back then. I feel like we were all kind of a part of a movement in terms of independent pro wrestling. Um, the talent was always there. Those guys you just named, and several others too. So you kind of knew that everybody was going to go on to a bigger stage, just didn't win. So it's more surreal than crazy, I would say. It's kind of cool to see so many people have gone on to make it and make so much money in professional wrestling. In terms of how I got started, I'll be honest, I really don't remember who called me or contacted me from WWN. I just remember hopping in a van with several others and going down to my first FIP show. And then from there, doing a couple FIPs, which kind of led into some of the style battle shows, which kind of led into me finally getting an opportunity with Evolve. It was a long process, but it was interesting. Some of the people that you just listed, I wrestled Cameron Grimes or Trevor Lee. I wrestled Lindsay Dorado. I wrestled a lot of those guys, and I wrestled them on FIP shows. So it's cool to see everybody evolve and change. And, it's a time that was a lot of fun for me, because I knew, I wasn't even in my prime yet. Like, I knew I was still figuring it out, but it was also cool just to be in there with so many talented guys that we all kind of pushed ourselves, to the limit in a way, whether there was, hundreds of people in an armory, or literally, I remember we did an FIP show at a Jewish community center one time, and it was only, there's probably 30 people there. But, it was just interesting to have guys around you that shared that same passion.
Right. Do you kind of miss, like, I mean, of course, with the pandemic like still going on, do you kind of miss like those days, like just the like the group car travels like type thing, going to city to city? Do you kind of miss those days, like as the business has kind of evolved a little bit? People still do that, but like, do you still feel like you kind of look back at those days very fondly and miss those times that you were able to share early in your career?
Yeah, I remember when the first couple of times I went over and did tours of Europe. That was one of the big things that I always enjoyed, was getting in the van and hanging out with the guys, talking about the business, telling jokes, laughing, bouncing ideas off each other. I think that's something that I guess this generation right now is kind of missing out on, because travel's so weird right now,
Yeah.
where you have to be careful about how you travel, who you travel with, and all that, at least for now. Hopefully that changes. But yeah, those were always fun times. I feel like it got to, I almost look forward more to being in the car with the guys than being on the act wrestling show. So it seems like the brother time with all the guys almost got in the way, or I'm sorry, wrestling almost got in the way of all the good times with your friends. So it was yeah, I wish and hope that maybe we get that back, but safely and as quickly as possible. It still exists. There's, you know,
Right.
I still travel with a handful of guys, but it's not, you know, in the capacity or the form that I would want to.
Right. And going back to you know, you mentioned Evolve getting your shot there in that promotion. Like when you were there, they were kind of like in the midst of their partnership with WWE. Like as a talent, like even though you weren't like I don't think you were an Evolve contracted talent, but like could you kind of see like the writing on the wall a little bit, like when you know when the partnership was on go? Because like once I saw that a WWE tag team had the Evolve tag team titles for 6 months straight, I was like, all right, like so something's obviously going on here, like 'cause it's probably gonna end up happening, and then I think it happened late last year when Evolve officially got sold to WWE. Like just from your perspective, like could you kind of see or like get the feeling that that was eventually going to happen, or was it kind of like just they WWE times were just an Evolve at the time, and it was just nothing, nothing to it.
No, I didn't see it. I didn't see the purchase necessarily coming. I
Okay.
always kind of felt, and a lot of guys, and I'm sure the guys that had full time contracts with Evolve would be able to tell you better than I could. Um, a lot of guys, I don't think, knew exactly what the relationship entailed. I think it was kind of seen as a talent trade. Guys from WWE would come and work on Evolve shows. Guys from Evolve would get opportunities with WWE, and I think that was about the extent of it. I think slowly as it went on, I think guys started to realize, oh, they're going to start putting Evolve content on the network, which is cool. I think that's very cool to go back to the early stages of a Johnny Gargano or a Chris Hero or so many other of these talented superstars that became WWE superstars or NXT superstars, and see what they were doing, even 4, 5, 6 years ago. So yeah, I was. It's kind of weird. I didn't see it coming, but I wasn't shocked either.
Mm.
Um, it's nice to see that the Evolve brand will probably stay alive in terms of the WWE network. But it was again, it was an opportunity for me. I knew that I was going to be seen by not only Evolve officials but by WWE officials as well.
Mm.
And at the time, I was just looking to catch a break. Again, I didn't really dive deep too much into what was going on in terms of the partnership or relationship. I just knew it was there. And
Mm.
when you have guys like William Regal coming to scout Evolve talent, it's not such a bad thing. And that's
Mm.
kind of the stuff that you worry about. Is we were talking about guys thinking of themselves as brands and as a product as soon as we kicked off this interview. And that's kind of what my primary focus was how can I elevate my career?
Mm. All right, and transition over a little bit. Like I know you did have the opportunity to work a New Japan show at the New Beginning USA tour back in 2019. I know you had the opportunity to work with Cole Cabana, Lance Archer, Shane Taylor. Like what was that experience like, man? Just being able to be under that New Japan bubble, and then are you hoping to one day end up working again with New Japan, possibly on NJPW Strong? And then I'm pretty sure most people's ultimate goal once they make it onto NJPW Strong is eventually head over to New Japan at their home company.
Yeah, Japan and New Japan specifically have always been like a destination or a bucket list item for me in my career. I've always wanted to wrestle in Japan. I've wrestled in Asia. I've wrestled in
Mm.
Hong Kong, Singapore, China, and I've never gotten the chance to wrestle in Japan. But I also don't want to just wrestle in Japan. I like for it to be with New Japan Pro Wrestling if ever given the opportunity. In terms of the New Beginnings loop, that was probably one of the more fun loops that I've ever been
Mm.
on in terms of the camaraderie. We were talking about riding in the cars with the guys and just having a good time. That was an incredible loop, and everybody that was on that loop of shows had a blast. We all had a just tremendous time. Charlotte, and then I think the last stop on the loop was Nashville, and that night in Nashville, I remember all of us just went out after and had such a good time
Mm.
celebrating the success that was that loop. And I know it might not have lived up to some of the fans' expectations because at the time there was something going on with work visas, and
Yeah.
I think hopefully the fans that did give it a chance and came out and watched the show, despite all that, realized that you still got a great card top to bottom, incredible matches, talented performers. Some of the stuff that I was watching as a talent kind of blew my mind. That's what I really saw. Trent Beretta or Trent I'd seen him before at FIP shows, at, WWE and stuff. Obviously, it's stuff in WWE, but I remember watching him on that loop, thinking, man, this guy is a star in the making. Like, he could be a total superstar. And that's where I kind of discovered that from Trent was on that New Beginnings tour.
Right. And I was just wondering, like, how, that camaraderie that you speak about, like how important that is to somebody that's not you are new to the business, but like necessarily, let's say, new to that crop of people that you're going to be around, like how important it is to feel welcomed, and how easier that can make that transition for a talent that's coming onto a roster full of people that they may not, let's not say you don't know them, but may not be as well acquainted with them. And then, like, for them to be so welcoming, I'm pretty sure that was like just a sigh of relief, I guess, more so, and just to know that people are welcoming you.
Yeah, it's always a good feeling to be welcomed with open arms. I feel like I kind of got that vibe even at AEW, because I had worked with so many guys previously on the independents. I mean, I think at this point, take AEW out of it, I think if you look at 85% of that roster, I've already had matches with 85% of the AEW roster. And the same kind of rang true a little bit with New Japan in terms of that particular tour. I'd already wrestled with a lot of those guys. So a lot of them had already known me from, previous shows or independents or wherever. Think sometimes it's a little bit tougher to be welcomed in, because some guys get a little too comfortable too quick when they're in a new place. I've also seen that recently, and it can be a huge turnoff if you welcome somebody in so easily and they become too comfortable too quick. So it was just a good tour. I had a blast working with Cabana and Lance Archer, and Shane Taylor was a blast. Got to do it in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is it's not my hometown, but it's kind of been my
close enough
home base. It's been my home base for a while in terms of a lot of the stuff I've done on the independents in the Carolinas. So it was cool to be in the Grady Cole Center, which was where that show was held. And that's a building rich with wrestling, history. So everything about that New Beginnings tour was a thumbs up across the board from me. Not gonna hear me complain too much about that.
Right. And like, so you like, I want to go back to earlier, something that you said about how AEW took care of you while you were injured. Like, just tell me, like, how that, over. I know you kind of dove into it a little bit, but like, just kind of further elaborate on how much that meant to you to know that, this company, you got hurt doing one of their shows, and not necessarily looking at it like it was their fault or anything, because that's not what you're saying at all, but like, just more so them being willing to take care of you throughout that process, and then once you get cleared, invite you back to let you kind of, like, put like set things right. You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure that was just a good feeling, man, just to know that they, just for them to fully embrace you like that and take care of you along the journey, and then let you, come back and, kind of get a fresh restart.
Yeah. And right out of the get-go, the injury that happened was nobody's fault whatsoever.
Right.
It was absolutely a freak accident that I don't even think could be replicated if we tried. That's how crazy it was. Getting injured on a forward roll, of all things, out of all the things I've done in my career, doing a forward roll under a line is what did me in. So that's, it's just one of those freak things. But I was very, very blessed that it happened when it happened. And it's tough to see it as you're going through it, but you look back at it in hindsight, like, I could have blown my knee out on an independent show somewhere. And, then I'm kind of up the creek without a paddle. There's nothing that anybody can do for me except me at that point. And, as soon as I got hurt and I was being taken away to the trainer's room to get checked out, one of the first that was there in the training room to check on me was Tony Khan.
Wow.
And he, rest assured, right away, like, you have nothing to worry about. We're going to bring you back. We're going to make sure you're taken care of. And just like that, my mind was kind of put at ease. As much as it could be at the time, again, I'm still thinking about this 8-month recovery I have ahead of me. So, for them to be as gracious enough as they were, just to invite me back and to give me every week I was there, even though I couldn't wrestle, that was, a huge blessing in disguise, especially during a pandemic where, an independent wrestler doesn't have the independence to rely on, or, in my case, I was a part-time teacher at one point, and there's no need for part-time teachers when everything goes virtual, online in terms of class, so it was just a huge blessing for me. It's something I'll never forget, the way that they've treated me and the way that they've taken care of me, especially during that injury. I mean, it should speak volumes of Tony, his heart, and really the way the entire company operates.
Like it's crazy because I remember I was listening to an interview that Ember Moon from WWE did, and she kind of spoke like amongst a similar thing because she ruptured her Achilles back in October of 2019, and she spoke about how she felt like, and she wasn't trying to present it in a way that sounded bad, but like she kind of feels like it was a blessing in disguise in a way because she missed like half of the pandemic start of wrestling. Like she was gone from October 2019 to late 20 for late 2020. So she feels like she kind of got like it things worked out for the best. That was like basically the best way she put it. But like, well, like I think it's cool that like one thing that you said earlier was like some of the guys that you already see that signed to AEW or that you work with at WWE, like half of these guys you work with on the independent scene. Isn't it crazy like when you really look at some of these rosters and you look at the amount of talent that have come from the independent scene and like just to see like we know where everybody is now. I think that's always like a real cool thing. It's like half of these rosters are filled with like most of some of like the top independent talents that that kind of really help shake the scene and pass it on to the next group of people.
Again, it's surreal. I was just having this conversation the other day with Big Swole, and then there were a
Mhm.
couple others. I think Diamante, JD Drake, Hangman Page, Serpentico. There were a of us that were just kind of sitting around at one of the tapings a few weeks ago, and we just talked about how surreal it was that 4 or 5 years ago we were all wrestling on the same independent show in front of the same crowd of maybe 100 people, and how just things have changed in a matter of years. And how I hate using the term "we're all living our best life" because hopefully better things have yet to come for all of us. But it was just so surreal to kind of look around and see how many people started on the independents, and have now made their way and stuck it out and grind through to where they're all, we all are in a comfortable position in our wrestling careers.
And I know she did. I know you did some shows throughout the years with Merlin Championship Wrestling. One thing I did want to get your thoughts on. I don't know if you had the opportunity to work with or be around RJ Meyer. For those of you who don't know, RJ passed away in November of 2020. He was a very prominent member within the Merlin Championship Wrestling family and their business that they got going on. If you have any fond memories of RJ that you can share, or any run-ins that you had with him, positive run-ins, of course, that that because I've seen so many people speak so highly of him. I didn't have the opportunity to know him, but I have seen so many people, Leo Rush, etc., that have like really spoken so highly of this person.
Yeah, RJ was a good dude. He a lot of the talent that you see that have come out of MCW, and a lot of them have gone on to WWE and AEW and several other places, Ring of Honor especially. And RJ also he worked with a lot of the top guys that you see. He was also a hell of a performer. But the one thing that I remember about him is he was very much an intimidating figure to
Mhm.
get to know. He was almost like that gatekeeper of their locker room, where
Mhm.
he was going to make sure that it was not necessarily his way or the highway, but you were going to fall in line with the people that had come before you and what the protocol was, or you weren't going to stick around very long. He was very protective of the locker room, and we had a weird bond because we both had the same pair of gym shorts, and it was kind of a weird thing, but we would always wear our short, like the same pair of gym shorts, because it was like a pair of red and black, and he had the same pair. We noticed that one day when we were in the locker room, and so anytime we had an MCW show, you could almost guarantee that me and him would both be wearing those shorts. So it's kind of a weird thing, silly thing, but that's what I remember about him. And I remember just him always having a smile, and man, he fought to the end too, man. Like he was a fighter, and he was a good human being. I think his legacy will live on not only through his family but through the guys that he's trained, and the mark that also left on MCW. Because if you hear about it all the time, guys saying they want to leave a place better than they found it,
Yeah.
and that rings true with him, because he definitely left MCW better than the way he found it.
Yeah, for sure, man. But blessings to RJ's family. I'm pretty sure like it wasn't easy, to lose a loved one. Of course, friends that knew him. I'm pretty sure that was a reference. So yeah, again, man, blessings to him and his family. But speaking of WWE, you mentioned them. You had like quite the couple stints in WWE, man. Like I did like I've seen you on WWE television before, and like your name is all over WWE's YouTube channel. Like I don't know if you see this. You got quite a few videos up there, man. I know that's pretty cool. But like I know you work with like the Revival, American Alpha, or FTR now, American Alpha, Kane, Ryback. Like just share some of some of your favorite collaborations that you've been able to have with WWE and kind of being in that backstage environment as you've been there quite a few times already.
Yeah, it's always been a bit of a whirlwind. For the longest time, I was just trying to get booked as like an extra talent, and I would call the office and probably annoy the hell out of them on a regular basis. Finally got an opportunity. The first time I ever go to TV, I as an extra, I had a tryout match with Ricardo Rodriguez, who used to be the personal ring announcer for Alberto Del Rio. We had a tryout match, and as soon as it was over, it went really well. As soon as it was over, they kind of told me like, "Hey, you're going to be wrestling Ryback tonight," and that was the cool part about that was it was my first time there. I'm doing something on television, and it's in my hometown. So it's actually because it actually took place in Columbia, South Carolina, where I grew up. So I mean, it was pretty surreal, fun experience. And from there, they would call here and there to bring me back to do things. Sometimes I wouldn't do anything at all. Sometimes I'd be in the dark match. Sometimes I would be doing whatever. And then really NXT became super popular there when it was first taken off. That's where I started to get used more consistently because I think it was right around the time of the Cruiserweight Classic. So I think they were taking a look at a lot of different, smaller guys or cruiserweights. So that's where I really started popping up more often. And then I would dare say that again, it kind of comes back around to Columbia, South Carolina, my hometown. It was the week of WrestleMania in Dallas. I had just gotten home from doing a couple things at more extra work at WrestleMania week, like had a match at Access with the Vaudevillains and just things like that. As I got home for the week, I got a call from Matt Bloom booking me on the live event loop in the Carolinas that week. So I got to wrestle on the non-televised shows for NXT against like Elias and Riddick Moss. And I got to do it in Columbia, my hometown, and in the building that I first started wrestling at as a kid, literally the building I first went to my first show at, the Township Auditorium in Columbia, South Carolina, was where I got to wrestle for NXT of all places. So it was just kind of, in a way, that was one of the nights where I could feel like, if this ends tomorrow, I could stand right here and say, all right, I did good, and, thankfully it didn't end there. And there's been plenty more since. I could have died a happy man right then and there.
That's cool, man. I'm glad that you are able to like have that full circle moment. I feel like that's really cool. Like with somebody from because you envision this stuff as a kid, as a teenager, and you probably think like at times you really believe in it, and then other times you like it's not gonna happen, and then it happened. So I feel like that's cool that you're able to have that inner peace within yourself to be like like damn, like I did it. I'm here, I did it. But like one thing that I really specifically remember from like I think this was like my first recollection because I had looked it up on YouTube and I remember this and I was like I remember when you wrestled No Way Jose at the night after WrestleMania. I was in New Orleans. That's what it was.
Yep.
Yeah, I was in Louisiana. Yeah. That crowd was hot. Like, the Mania, the Raw, the Mania crowds are always hot, but that was one of the cool things. But when you talk about how those spots with WWE came about, like was it more so of a thing like of you just making yourself available or like traveling to these shows and then like not traveling to the shows but like just happen to be in the area and then basically like I said earlier just making yourself available to whenever the opportunity presents itself.
Yeah, and it also came down to just not saying no. That's what I always tell guys that have come along since me and guys that I've helped have a small hand in training is you never know what's going to come out of it. You never know what you're going to end up doing. So it's kind of hard to say no, especially if you're trying to, get a job somewhere or finally have a run or whatever the case may be. So it was a little bit of both, though, to answer your question. Sometimes I made myself available. Sometimes it just so happened that I was in the area, and other times they would call me, "Hey, can you be in Washington D.C. next Monday?"
Mhm.
Even if you can't, you just say yes,
Right.
and you get there. So that's just kind of where I was at that time, especially being in like my 20s, just trying to make a name for myself and get a job. That was what you kind of had to do, was stuff available even last minute, sometimes day of too.
Right.
There were times I recall, being called literally the day of, "Hey, can you be here? Because we've had an injury or whatever, and we need somebody here just in case." And yes, and you pack
Right.
your bags, you get in the car, and you go. So it's all the classic stories that you thought that you probably heard from back in the day that don't seem real, but actually they happen on a fairly regular basis.
But no, when I first reached out to you last week about doing the interview, I had went and looked at like 3 or 4 of your matches on YouTube, and like my favorite one that I saw was you versus Cedric Alexander. I had wrote it down, and I made sure that had to make sure to mention this. Like that was one of my favorite matches from the 4 bunch that I saw from you. Like just like of course I seen your stuff on AEW Dark, but just meaning like the ones that I recently searched up. Like what was it like working with Cedric, man? Of course now he's in WWE doing this thing, formerly a member of the Hurt Business, but like I think you two just kind of like what specifically that match in the PWX promotion, like you guys just sort of like get each other. It was like I don't know if that really makes sense, but like it just like just from what I saw, the match was like 25 minutes plus. Like you guys just really like I don't know, you just click. Like I don't know if that really makes sense what I'm saying. It's just like you guys
Yeah,
just kind of like got each other in the ring, and it was like it was smooth the whole way through.
I think when I was coming up around that time, I think I might have broken into the business a little bit before Cedric,
Mhm.
but Cedric was probably the guy that I saw take to pro wrestling the quickest, and he was just the most naturally gifted athlete that I think I've ever seen. So wrestling him was always easy. There were a couple times, I think I know the match that you're talking about, because I think he punched me right in the mouth, and I ended up bleeding out of my nose and mouth. Which thanks, Cedric. Uh, but he was always great to work with, and it was always a blast to wrestle him. I remember a few times in the Carolinas doing matches with him where we were feuding over a title, and we did a 30-minute.
Cedric is from there. I forgot that.
Yeah, he's a Charlotte, North Carolina
Mm.
guy. We wrestled 30 minutes to a draw, wrestled 35 minutes to a draw, wrestled 45 minutes to a draw, and
Damn.
then we came back with a no time limit uh, match or whatever. It was kind of cool how we did it. The last match was going to be for the title, no time limit. And it's going to kick off the show because it could go all night. Well, nobody knows
Mhm.
how long this is going to last, because we've gone 30 minutes, 35 minutes, 45 minutes, no winner. Now there's no time limit, and we went 12 minutes.
Mm.
And it was just something cool. And working with Cedric was always a blast, and I'm happy for his success, not only in the ring, out of the ring with his family and his daughter, and everything that he's accomplished. Is, again, I wouldn't say it's crazy, because you could always kind of tell that's a guy that's going to make it,
Right.
but it's definitely surreal to see just how well he's done.
Mhm. Yeah, man. John, you've had a very experienced career, man. You've done a lot in professional wrestling, and it's glad to see you were able to, further achieve success. Hopefully there's some more in AEW for you down the line, but we're gonna continue watching and continue supporting, man. Yeah, I do want to thank you for your time to take you to do this, for taking the time to do this interview. Feel free to plug any social media you got, any merchandise. I'll make sure to put it in the description below this video.
Yeah, if anybody wants to follow me on social media, it's at the John Skyler on Twitter and Instagram. That's it. I'm not on anything else.
Mhm.
Um, I have a YouTube channel that people can subscribe to. They can see old matches, promos, vignettes, all sorts of cool stuff that I've uploaded on there. And then I have a Pro Wrestling Tees store. I also tell folks that if they want more updated and newer merchandise, they can contact me directly on any form of social media. I've got pictures, trading cards, T-shirts, memorabilia, anything that a wrestling fan would enjoy. I have that people can DM me or message me directly, and I'm actually a pretty nice guy, so
Mhm.
I'll give people the time of day, especially if they're spending money.
Yeah, there you go, man. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Andrew Thompson of the Andrew Thompson Interviews YouTube channel. I'm signing off with the man himself, John Skyler, and we are out. Peace.